Welcome to Conversations with Friends. My name is R.O. Smith, and this is the award-winning Jen Weck. You're like, what award? We'll talk about that in just a second. But Conversations with Friends is a place where faith and culture have a dialogue together, and that's what we want to do. We want to see how they can be in communication with one another and how they actually intersect rather than are dividing and apart from one another. So this morning we get to talk to Jen Weck. Yay! Welcome. Thank you for coming with us. Thank you for being here, actually. So we have you here because you won a award.
I did.
Well, we have you here for other reasons, but what was the award? The award was the School Social Work Intern of the Year.
Yes.
And this is for San Diego, or is this for all the country?
This was for San Diego County Office of Education.
Okay,
so
got it.
SDCOE.
Got it. Now it's an intern award. So is that like a half award, or that's not the full-fledged?
Absolutely not. I am a full-fledged award-winning intern.
That's amazing. So how did you get nominated? How does it go? How do you go about winning this award?
Okay.
Tell me that first.
I've been getting a master's degree in social work through USC for the past 2 years.
Okay.
And part of that program includes a year-long internship. And I'm interested in getting into school social work.
Okay.
So I did my internship through San Diego County Office of Education, specifically at Monarch School, which is a K through 12 school serving children and youth experiencing homelessness.
Okay.
And so it was through every March, they have this annual award ceremony. They hand out 6 awards, an intern award, and it's all in the field of social work. Okay. An elementary school social worker, middle school, high school, an administrative social worker, the intern, and then like a spotlight on a social work professional who's doing kind of innovative and exciting things.
All right.
So I was nominated by 3 of my colleagues at my internship at Monarch School, and I ended up being chosen.
Well, that's awesome. Well, congratulations. So,
Thank you.
Now, was your undergrad, was it in social work?
No, I did my undergrad in human development.
So you're doing almost like a completely different, and your career field was health and fitness, correct?
That's correct.
So you're literally doing like a whole different. And how young are you, may I ask? Oh, I don't say how young you are, but this is a later in life kind of big decision.
Yes.
And how did this impact your family? Like, did your family were they supportive? Were they like, Mom, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, frankly, the decision was all about my family. I'm a single mom, and my financial arrangement with my ex-husband is going to be coming to an end soon. Okay. And I needed to be prepared for that. I'd love to stay in Point Loma and in San Diego. Right. And I didn't feel that I wanted to go back into the fitness industry at this stage and point in my life. Right.
Because it's like probably not really consistent with the pandemic and post-pandemic.
Right.
It feels like it's people. I can understand
It's just
that.
something I was ready to move on from as a career. And so I started really thinking about, how I want to spend my time going forward. Mm-hmm. And, with my children moving on in their lives in a few years, I really sat down to think like, well, what plans do I have for myself? What plans does God have for me? Right. What should I be doing with my time that will be enjoyable for me, but also useful? I think we're at a point in time in society and the world where there are a lot of things happening and things that are beyond our control, outside of our control. Right. And you see people responding and reacting by, yelling on social media or, doing all of these things that really aren't helpful. That's not going to solve or have an impact on any of the problem. It gets the frustration off your chest, but in terms of actually doing anything, that's not going to be how you do it. So I really thought, what can I do that might make an impact? Mm-hmm. And I love working with children. I love working in schools. So I started substitute teaching with San Diego Unified. Okay. And I realized kind of just to see if that was the right fit, if that's what I want to do. And I realized very quickly that I don't want to be the teacher. Okay. But I loved, yeah, no, that's,
I
I'll
love
leave
kids,
that.
but not that much.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Not in that way, right?
I will leave
Not
that
teaching.
to the full-time educators. But I found I really loved supporting the students, and I really loved working with them one-on-one. And that's how, through just some research, I found social work as a profession.
Why not like school counselor rather than, What's the kind of difference, I guess?
Two things. If I would have gone back to school specifically for school counseling, I would have been a school counselor. And so that would have sort of limited me to just that scope of practice.
This is your lane.
Right,
Or
exactly.
social work, you have a broader lane of...
Right.
You can do schools, you can do something different in social work.
Yes, it had more
options and opportunities
to it with a master's of social work. So I could do a school, I could work in a hospital, I could work in foster care. There's so many different places and settings. So that's one reason that I went with social work, to just give myself more options. But in a school setting, I chose social work over counseling too, because the counselors end up doing a lot of scheduling and grades and academic, college counseling and the like. Right. And that wasn't really what I wanted to go for. I was going more for therapy and interventions and working with families and parents and students.
Cool. So you made this decision. How long had you been working in your previous career of health and fitness?
I worked in health and fitness industry. Well, no, more about 12 years. 12? Okay. I stayed home with my children for about 4 years when they were young. And it was after that I was... So
either way, you're making a significant career change. Afraid? Were you fearful? Were you... What emotions were you experiencing when you were going through it? And
I would say I was excited, and I sort of was ready to just see what was going to come next. Okay. It really was a leap of faith, to be honest. Right. A carefully researched leap of faith. But it really was...
But still, it's a drastic difference from what you've known for 12 years, and you're no network. You didn't have a network necessarily to go off. You're just like starting from scratch. So that can be terrifying.
Terrifying, but it was driven by passion. Yeah. And I have a passion for mental health and helping people work through mental illness. It's touched my own family very closely, and I've had a lot of lived experience with that I think is unique to people who live through those situations. And so I also felt, as I was thinking, well, what would be useful? What would be purposeful? Serving as a mental health counselor for me is sort of making meaning of experiences I've had in my life. Okay. Tell
me a little bit more. Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit more of the mental health issue. So it sounds like you have a passion for it. Is it something that you just kind of identified and you were drawn to it, or was it in a way drawn to you? Did it find you and through? It sounds like from something that happened within your own family. Are you?
That's a really great question, and the answer to that, honestly, is...
You met each other out on the street, right?
No, it's me asking God, why? Why am I having these experiences? Why am I going through all of this? Because this is really hard. Yeah. And... Can
I ask, was it your own mental health, or was it someone within your family?
It was all of the above.
Okay.
And it showed me that if I can be having these experiences within my own family, then I can only imagine how many other people are living through similar things and much worse. And I knew the impact that even just my own experiences had on me. And it really caused me to think very seriously about what pain other people really go through. And I found that I really wanted to help people who are in that place because I would have liked to have had that kind of help. You know, the world of mental health and mental illness is pervasive. It's everywhere.
Right.
But we don't always recognize it and we don't always see it. And so I think that the reality is, you know, we call it this thing, but the reality is we all experience it. And so I think that bringing greater awareness to just the day-to-day, the fact that like people you know are struggling,
right,
is important. And that's really where I wanted to start focusing my attention and energy.
And so through the Monarch School, did USC, that's the Fight on Trojans, that's USC, did they find the school for you, or did you find it, or how'd you come across Monarch School?
So Monarch School is unique in that it serves exclusively youth experiencing homelessness. And I was drawn to Monarch School because of PUM. When I went through my divorce, like 10, 12 years ago, I was in a lot of emotional pain. And I made the decision, I saw in the church bulletin one morning that they were looking for volunteers at PUM. And PUM serves the homeless population. So I was looking for things to do with my time that would kind of just pull me out of my own pain, right? And so I decided to volunteer at PUM. And it was then, I worked as a volunteer caseworker. A lot of our church community helps out down there. So I was working alongside our congregation, and I found that I had a huge heart for the homeless. And I saw these people in need of resources, in need of hope, in need of kindness. And I fell in love with serving that community. So when it came to doing my internship and knowing that I wanted to have an experience in a school setting, I actually requested to do my internship at Monarch School.
Okay.
San Diego County Office of Education had never placed a social work intern there before, because Monarch School is a partnership with the school district and a nonprofit organization that raises well over $1 million for wraparound services, specifically for the students and their families. So, for example, there's a whole team of therapists up on the second floor of the building who are on site ready to work with students on a regular basis, or, you know, sort of short-term crisis work, whatever might be necessary. We also have a donation-based clothing boutique on campus where once a month every student gets to come through and go shopping, where they for free can take shoes, clothing, toiletries, whatever they might need. Food resources, employment resources, bus passes, all sorts of things. And so I was really excited. I really wanted to see how a partnership like that worked. How does this work?
Right.
How is it functioning? Is this successful? Why is this the only school of its kind in our country?
Right. The only one in the country.
It is the only school in the United States that exclusively serves homeless youth.
Okay, that's bonkers. All right.
Right? So I wanted to see how this was working, and I requested to do my internship there, and my supervisor at SDCOE told me, well, we've never placed anyone there before because they're so well resourced through the nonprofit.
Right.
She said, but let me check. I'll talk to some people and ask. And she was given the green light, and they said, all right, sure. So I was the first social worker, and frankly, the first social worker on campus. The therapists at this stage seem to mostly be marriage and family therapists.
Okay.
So it was only after about a couple of weeks that the principal called my supervisor and was like, can we have another one?
Oh, wow.
They really saw the value that a social worker brings to a setting, any situation, because of our holistic
Right, and
view.
what did you do that was as a compliment, that was complementary to what the therapists were doing, but not the same thing? What was?
I was able to push into classes, and I was able to do a lot of brief crisis intervention work.
Okay.
That was really like in the moment, on the spot, because I was on the ground, moving in and out of classrooms. The therapists are there on site basically to reduce a barrier to therapeutic services, right? If we're on campus, you don't have to drive to your appointment. You don't have to pay for your appointment. You don't have to be on time to your appointment. We just come down, you know what I mean?
Come down to you, right?
But they,
awesome.
I was creating relationships with the teachers, with the rest of the staff, with the students, all of the students, not just my perhaps assigned client, right? So I was really infiltrating the whole school.
Yeah.
And responding to situations as they arose, and they just found that sort of help and reach to be invaluable.
Right, you're almost kind of like a mentor, a adult mentor that was kind of almost like a youth leader in a weird way. Like,
yes,
just kind of like hanging out. Oh, they seem cool and
absolutely.
like us. And,
social workers in schools are absolutely role models.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to something you said earlier that kind of caught my attention. But you had said that you had seen the volunteer opportunity at PUM, and out of your pain, you decided to go serve.
Yeah.
How did that address your pain? Like, did it, or were you? Because I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I didn't know. Were you trying to avoid it and mask your pain, or did it help you address the pain that you had in your life?
I think originally, I was looking for a place where I could be with my pain, and I think I was drawn to PUM specifically because I presumed that the clients who were coming to PUM for their services were also in a lot of pain.
Okay.
But what it ended up being for me was, like, I went there sort of looking for a place to just commiserate almost, right? And what it ended up, I found community. I found community. And it gave me purpose through my pain. And I don't have family here, and I have a lot of great friends, but going through something like that, a divorce, when you have two really young kids, it can be really isolating. And even though there are wonderful supports like church, which I totally leaned on, and friends, and this and that,
Right.
there's sort of there's a point at which you all go home for the day.
Right.
Right? And
I'll just stay here with my pain, right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to find a community of people who were really living through something really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I that's what I found. And what I found was that it felt I was relieved of my pain by giving at that point then. Like, being in a community where I felt connected and impactful helped me release some of that pain. Because and then having the reciprocal experience of empathy.
Right.
Empathy.
Right.
Being able to, they didn't know my pain, I wasn't there to share that with them, but like, I could genuinely look them in the face and be like, I'm feeling it too, in a different way. And, but I feel you, I see you, you are a human being just like me.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better.
Totally. Well, you're stirring it up in me, because what I thought was interesting is, in your pain, you decided to give yourself in a way, like to serve. I think a lot of times in our culture, and we, when people are in pain, they just kind of shrink into themselves and try to figure it out and discover. And for our youth especially, it's like go on social media to try to find which is even more isolating. And and you talked about like this idea of empathy. You're not going to get empathy through a screen, but yet like our culture has said, oh, we are connected by social media, but yet we're the most lonely and restless and rootless culture, and so I thought that just totally struck me that there's a sense of in the giving away of yourself, within your pain, you found healing, you found the things that like address your pain and address what it means to be human. And I thought that was, I don't know, there's something that just kind of like almost biblical or godly about that.
Well, let me tell you, Aro, Jesus was a carpenter, but I think he was a social worker.
Okay, we'll check our biblical reference on that one. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
I mean, if you listen, the more, Carla offers such wonderful Bible studies. I attended pretty regularly for a period of time, and it was through her Bible studies that I really started connecting to Jesus as the person, right? As the man that he was. And really listening. I mean, the one thing, if people tell me they think I'm wise or this and that, what I say to that is, well, that is because I have decided to listen to people older than me.
Totally.
Because that and a lot of Oprah. But...
Okay.
I'm just telling it like it is.
All right.
But I mean, if you listen to people who have walked before you, if you actually listen and you heed their advice, it's all right there.
Right.
They're giving us the information.
They've got plenty of experience to work off of that will save us a little bit of headache along the way, yeah.
Right? Or maybe steer us down a more purposeful path.
Right.
And I started listening to the words of Jesus, and I'm like, he's out there helping the homeless.
Right.
He's helping the sick. That's what he's doing, and that's what his message was.
Right.
And that has inspired my path.
And I appreciate that. Yeah, and Jesus was a holistic. He was about the whole. Like he didn't just like tell you your sins are forgiven. He also said, pick up your mat and walk. Right? He wanted to
empowerment.
Wanted to put you back into the community.
Yes.
I mean, it was because redemption was not just in like the forgiveness of sins. Redemption was like being a part of that community, being able to contribute. So it's like
the restorative piece.
Restorative. It's so awesome.
Right.
Totally. So you've hit a couple of big ones. Mental health and homelessness are huge. Obviously, those are kind of on the forefront. I mean, it feels like, and even with Jesus' day, you'll always have the homeless with you, that kind of. So I know that, like, for a lot of people, they probably are sitting there and they just kind of go, what can we do about these two huge problems? They feel huge, they feel too big, they feel overwhelming. I can't do anything about it, and sometimes we look at, even with the homeless, we just kind of are like, I'll just give them $1, but you feel like that doesn't feel right, or you give them water, but that doesn't feel like enough.
Right.
Like, what are some things that we viewers we could maybe do that aren't maybe in social work or aren't actively in schools? Like, what are some everyday things that we could do to address? I guess those are two issues, but mental health or homelessness that you kind of would say, here's some advice from a wiser person.
Well, the best thing to do is just find a way to get involved. And even if that means just educating yourself, that's getting involved. Learning, because what you just said, it's this big problem. It's not as big as you might think. Homelessness, in San Diego, there aren't like 1 million homeless people.
Right.
It's maybe 20, 30,000. That's still a lot.
Right.
But we're a city of 1.3 million people. We are a county of over 3 million people. 20 to 30,000 comparatively really is not that many. Okay. And I was quoted in the newspaper article of saying something like, the problem doesn't get any smaller by just thinking it's too big.
Interesting.
In fact, the problem grows.
Right.
The bigger we think it is, because we don't take action. And no problem is going to get any smaller without people stepping in to do something. And what does that mean? Do something. What does that mean? Yeah. Well, if you are curious about, interested in, want to do something about homelessness, there are so many organizations around San Diego working on addressing the issue. And connecting with one of those, or even just one of those organizations. Support them, support their work with a donation. Get on their mailing list. Join their board. Volunteer with them, right?
Right.
You're aligning yourself with a community of people who are actively working on the solution to the problem. And that is the more people who come out and get involved, the stronger of a response that we can offer. And it won't happen unless we come out. Like, I had no idea what kind of an impact I could have in a school, particularly a school like Monarch.
Right.
But now that I've gone out and I'm there, I'm like, I can change some lives here.
Yeah.
Just by being here.
Yeah.
I can change lives.
Yep.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
And I believe you don't have to be a social worker.
Yep.
You don't have to be a counselor. You can be a human being just deciding to literally show up for other human beings. Not on the computer, not on social media, not in person.
Yep.
That makes a big difference.
So this is going to totally be like one of those ridiculous preacher, whatever. But but it makes sense. But he's like, he doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. It's like that idea of like, if you feel called, like, because there's so many times that you see people that are like, I want to help, but I just don't feel like I have enough. I don't know enough, or whatever. And he's like, that's all right. Just if you feel called to it, God will equip you in that calling. Like, it sounds like that's what happened to you. You're like, I don't know if I can handle it. And then you find out I can totally do this, but not out of what necessarily you knew you had, but what God gave you, and just kind of discovering that. And again, it goes back to this giving yourself away, which I'm just struck with. It sounds like you gave yourself away, and maybe you didn't even know it at the time, but you gave yourself away and said, I'm just going to serve you, God, and hello, now look at it.
It's been the biggest gift I've ever received. I mean, obviously my children are the greatest gift.
Right.
But aside from that, I've been blessed. God blessed me with this opportunity and this second chapter, and even some colleagues at Monarch, the school counselor, she and I have become really close, and she bought me a little plant and wrote a little note that said, God blessed us so much by sending you here.
And it's not a Christian school or anything, right?
Nope, it's not a Christian school, but a lot of the staff, ironically, at that school are Christian.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome.
And there is a vibe over there, there's a very faith-based vibe among the staff. Everybody definitely, a lot of people feel called.
That's awesome. So you're at Monarch School now. So you're still an intern?
I am. My internship ends next week.
So have they not hired you? What's keeping you? Monarch people. What are they? So what's the next steps?
The next step is I have thrown my hat into the ring for a few positions that are open at Monarch School.
Okay, good.
I will have to go through the process, and we'll see how that goes. But if it doesn't work out at Monarch, and if I can't find something in a school setting, I'll probably start looking to do more clinical social work, perhaps in a hospital or another setting working with children.
Which sounds so boring compared to what you have been doing. But anyway. Well, Jen, thank you so much for like coming and sharing about your award that you got and just about your story. And I'm just like, I'm really struck about, I said it again, the whole, how you gave yourself away and the pain. And I just think that was just like so cool. Like, yeah, I just thought I think it's cool what God does with us when we actually just give ourselves away, no matter if we feel healing or are in the midst of pain. When we give ourselves away and say, yes, God, whatever the question is, doesn't matter, it's always yes. And it's cool to see what he does. So, thank you for joining us for this morning for Conversation with Friends. If you like what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe to the YouTube page. And if you want to ring that bell, you'll get notifications not only for other conversations that we have in the future, but any kind of content. Like we have worship songs and hymns, and we have services on this site. So go ahead and like and subscribe, and you'll be receiving that. But until then, we hope to see you the next time on Conversation with Friends. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
See you later.